Cape Fear Business Roundtable is sponsored by two branding partners located under one roof right here in southeastern North Carolina. Pioneer Strategies is a strategic communication firm focused on helping you build success through effective strategic communication. Pioneer Specialties is your promotional products partner, ready to help you through the entire process from product research through product delivery. For more information about our sponsors, visit capefearbusiness.com.
Welcome to Cape Fear Business Roundtable. I'm your host, Frank Williams, and today we have with us Victor Fernandes of Fernandes Fit. Victor, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me on
Yeah.
your show. I appreciate it. I'm excited.
And I will point out, today we're recording this on Labor Day. That's not the day it will post, but this is a man who is willing to work on what's a holiday for many people, and I think that's worth pointing out as we record this today. Well, Victor, before we get into business, I like to just find out a little bit about the personal background of our guest. And obviously, we live in an area where lots and lots of people are moving in every day to our part of the state. So tell us where you're from, and if you're not from this part of the state, how you wound up here.
Well, I'm originally from the New York City suburbs. Haven't lived there since the mid 90s, but came down to North Carolina in a bit of a, I guess, circuitous route, if you will, about 3 years ago. Before I went into the health and fitness industry, I was a sports writer for 26 years.
Okay.
So I worked in various locations, starting in New York City, but ultimately making my way up north to upper New York State, to northern New York State and Corning, New York. Made my way down south all the way to Savannah, Georgia. Was there for 6 years, met my wife down there. And then we moved our family up to Erie, Pennsylvania, where we were for 15 years. So I would have an opportunity to cover the NHL, which was a goal of mine for many, many years. We were there for 15 years, like I said, and we got tired of the winters. If you've ever been to Erie, you know one of their calling cards is being one of the top 5 cities in the country with the most amount of snow during one winter. So they were number one quite a few times while we lived there. Ended
Dubious
up at
distinction.
a dubious distinction, but they hang their hat on it. They're very, very proud of that fact. So I'm very upset when they don't win. And then I moved to Ocean City, Maryland. We fancy ourselves to be beach people, and we wanted to be closer to the ocean. I wanted to be closer to my family up in New York as well. So we moved there, and that's when I started in the health and fitness industry. I was working for a small gym there. It was awesome. It was an opportunity to do a lot of different things. I served everything from acting general manager to front desk clerk, and I was not only the head trainer for 2 years, I was the only trainer. So I wore a lot of hats and did a lot of work in that place, and it was a great place to start my career in this industry. And when I decided to venture out on my own, we realized we were still being followed by snow and cold winter weather, even there along the ocean of Maryland. So we moved our way south to this area now. And 3 years ago, we spent a year in Leland, and then we had a house built in Bolivia, and we've been here now a little over 2 years, and that's where I run my business from.
Excellent. Well, welcome to God's country, as I like to call it. I
Appreciate it.
think if I had ever been in journalism, I would have enjoyed being a sports writer. I would have wanted to cover college basketball, being someone who grew up in North Carolina,
Mhm.
and I have a cousin who was a sports writer for the Virginian Pilot for many years up in Norfolk, and has recently retired, and I think gotten inducted into a Hall of Fame of some sort up there. So he did that for about 50 years. He's a little bit slightly older than me, so he's had a long career, and I think had the chance to cover some very interesting things. But well, you touched on this by getting away from snow and the fact that you're a beach person. But what are your favorite non-work related things to do in this part of the state?
Well, certainly hitting the beach is one. We bought a truck a couple of years ago, so now we make our way to the 4x4 beach at Curie Beach quite often. And I love to spend time with family, and I tell people, and it was kind of the basis of my book as well, is that I spent so many years focused on the business side of things, the professional side of things, because that's what I thought I needed to be as a husband, as a father. I had to be the provider, when in fact I needed to be so much more. And I was falling short in a lot of those areas. And I realized that I was missing out on a lot, for my family by simply not being present, in the moment. And once I started, especially in the health and fitness industry, and opened my own business, one of the reasons I wanted to do it was not only did I want to have control over how the business grows, whether it succeeds or fails, it falls on me, but it also allows me to set my own schedule where I could spend more time with my family and have more control of our schedule and be able to do a lot more things together. And in fact, like I said, in God's country, beautiful weather here pretty much year round. We enjoy getting out and traveling and seeing a lot of different things. There's still parts of this area, of the Cape Fear region, that we haven't experienced yet that we do definitely want to. So anything that involves my family and being outside, I'm always up for.
I have a lot of people answer that question with where they like to eat, but given that your business is fitness, I'm not surprised that you didn't choose that.
We are
I was
foodies,
at
though. We do like to be. We like doing eating out quite often. There's no doubt about that.
I was at a networking event a while back, and when they were ordering meals, one of the people looked around to see if you were there before they decided what to order. I'm not going to say which one of your clients cheated on you that day.
That happens more often than you think, even with people who aren't my clients.
I believe it. And I'm assuming she was your client, but she looked around to see if you were there before she got the French fries.
Yeah, she knew the assignment. That's
She
for
knew the
sure.
assignment. Well, you've already talked a little bit about your career journey and how you progressed from being in sports writing to owning your own business. So tell us more about what you do. Obviously, fitness could mean a lot of different things. It could mean a big gym that you pay a membership to. It could mean a one-on-one personal training. Tell us what you do and the type of clients you like to work with.
Absolutely. Well, I'd mentioned earlier that I started my career in a brick and mortar gym, a very small gym where I could do a lot of different things and learn a lot of different things. And one thing I discovered while working there was that there's a real disconnect in the traditional brick and mortar gym. Let's say, for example, I work with you and we meet Monday, Wednesday, Friday for an hour each day. There's a disconnect when we go from Monday to Wednesday. There's no connection in between. And what I discovered was that the real gains, the real progress that people make isn't what happens when they walk into the gym, it's what they're doing once they leave. And for me, I knew that health and fitness wasn't simply Monday, Wednesday, Friday for an hour. It was 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And the program that each individual person has needs to reflect that. So we're talking about working on mindset. We're talking about working on our nutritional goals. Certainly health, fitness training and strength training. And of course, the one we all need, including myself, is the level of accountability that we need to have to keep us on track. Now, when it comes to who I work with, there's been quite a few different iterations of that over the past 6, 7 years since I entered the industry. I've worked with people from ages 14 to 83 and everywhere in between at one point in time or another. But what I discovered, I essentially had to look in a mirror. Who is my ideal client? Well, you're looking at him, me, the person who allowed himself to focus so much on sacrificing of himself to build my career, to be able to pay the bills, put a roof over our head, put food on the table, that I sacrificed my own health and well-being in the process to do all that. And to me, it's great to do all those things, but if you can't enjoy the fruits of your labor, what's the point? And for me, if my health and well-being is going downhill, I can't enjoy all those things like I should be able to. So the people I work with are people like myself, busy professionals, entrepreneurs, business owners, career-driven people who have sacrificed themselves on a professional level, or on a personal level rather, to build their professional success. So many of us think that you can't have one without the you have to have both together. So many of us think we have to sacrifice one to have the other. And my job, my goal, my mission is to make sure that people understand both have to work together if you want to be successful both personally and professionally.
Yeah, I've run across people who are self-employed or in business where they have a lot of responsibility that almost feel guilty if they take time away from work to go do something to take care of themselves. And I've come to realize that if I don't take care of myself, as a self-employed business owner, I am my business' most important asset.
Mhm.
I've got some team members now that are just as capable as I am, but especially when it was just me, if I'm not functioning, nothing is functioning. And I think that's a mindset gap that people need to get past. If they don't take care of themselves, they're going to wind up being forced to take care of themselves at some point. And I am certainly no model on exercising and doing the things I need to do, but I do realize that I have to take time to do things to take care of myself because if it's like the old the analogy in Stephen Covey where they were so anxious to get the golden eggs that they killed the goose.
Oh, 100%. And for me, the most important abilities anyone, especially someone who's self-employed, whether it's just I work alone. You've experienced that as well. Whether it's just us or whether we have a team, the two biggest traits, attributes, the abilities we need to have are availability and reliability. If we don't have both, what happens? Our business suffers. It struggles. I know for anybody who has a team, if you have somebody who's struggling with their health and well-being, what's happening? They're in and out of doctors' offices all the time. They're taking time off because they're not well. Whatever it may be, and it hurts them individually, and it hurts the team, the business collectively. So you have to be able to have one and to be able to build the other. If you don't, if one struggles, the other side of the coin is inevitably going to struggle as well.
Well, tell us a little bit about, obviously you've talked about how you got into this business, but what do you love about what you do? And what do you think sets you apart from other options that people might have in terms of finding someone to help them with fitness?
What for me, the most fun and exciting aspect of it all is seeing the light bulb go on in a client's head. Really, all of a sudden, they've seen the fruits of their labor. They've seen what it's taken to buy into the process, to embrace the process, to really trust the program and trust the journey that they're on. When they finally see the benefits from it, when they finally reap those rewards, and the level of confidence that just overcomes them, I don't know who's happier, them or me. Because when I say I would do this for free, it's those moments that I would love to do for free, because I don't know if like I said, I don't know if I'm happier than they are, because I get so excited when they see it. For me, the reason I stand apart, I don't consider myself an expert. I don't consider. I still don't consider myself a businessman, much less an expert at this point. But what I do know is whenever I have a conversation with someone, whether it's someone that works with me or doesn't, there's always something that I can relate to in the story that they're sharing, because I've experienced it in some way, shape, or form myself. And the wheels start turning. Oh man, I know exactly what so and so is saying. I remember when. And I can turn those mistakes that I made and those struggles that I had into lessons I can help them learn and apply to themselves. I wasted 2 decades of my life trying to figure this out for myself. I want to keep people from wasting 2 decades of their life doing the same. And for me, even though I may not consider myself an expert, I do know I've experienced a lot of ups and downs in my adult life that I can draw from, that's going to help people not only relate to me, but me being able to relate to them as well.
And I think that's important. Too many people just prescribe solutions without understanding one way or the other, or being understood by the person they're working with. And I think that ability not only to relate to your clients, but that for them to relate to you is very important. You mentioned that you've been through a lot of this yourself and that you've struggled with it, and I've got a feeling that leads into talking about your book that you wrote, which I wrote the title of it,
Yeah.
"Reclaiming My Authentic Self: A Journey from Fear to Freedom." You want to tell us about what your book's about and what inspired you to write that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're looking at the people right on the cover. That's who inspired it. Here's my mom. My late father passed away a little less than 2 years ago. And then my wife and youngest son, my family. Those are the people I do all of this for. And for me, this book is about the dynamic of my adult life, my earlier adult life, even going back to my childhood as well, and to my current adult life. I like to tell people I'm 53, I'm almost 54 years old, but I'm still on the front nine. My adult life is in its relative infancy, because it took me a long time to figure out what being an adult, what being a human being, a person, is all about. And it's not simply about just going to work and paying the bills, and putting a roof over people's heads. Those are important things, but there's more for a lot of us, and myself, and this book explains a lot of that. I spent so many years merely existing in my life, in my adult life, as opposed to living it, because I never believed, you mentioned earlier about feeling selfish, about taking time for yourself. I felt selfish to do anything that benefited me and me alone in any way. Because to me, an adult's life, a parent, a spouse, their job is to put everybody else before themselves. And I'm here to tell people that actually it's the other way around. You have to be selfish to a certain extent. You hear about it on when you're on an airplane, anytime when they talk about the mask coming down from the ceiling. You don't put it on somebody else first and then yourself. You'll be passed out by then. You put it on you first so you're able to help somebody else. Same thing in this respect. If you don't take care of yourself, if you don't put yourself number one and understand that you are important, your life is important, your goals, your wants, and needs are all important, you're not at your best. So what happens when you're not at your best? You're not at your best for the people that you say you're sacrificing for in the first place. So you don't benefit from it. You're doing a disservice to yourself and to them as well.
I've seen so many instances of people who were caregiving for someone, and they were so busy caring for that other person that they didn't do anything to take care of themselves, and then they wind up in the hospital or worse, and then they can't take care of that person. And I think that's, an unfortunate and all too common example of how that plays out.
I dealt with it with my own mother, still to this day. She was my father's primary caretaker in his last few years of life. He passed away in November of 2023, and she is the epitome of who I was growing up, putting everybody first, sacrificing herself for everybody all the time, every time. And I was hoping once my dad passed, she would be able to understand, I need to live my life. My dad didn't live his life. He merely existed in the last 7, 8 years of his life. I don't want the same for my mom, who just turned 80 the other day. But it's a lesson that she's still learning to this day. I talk about that a lot in this book. And to me, those were the lessons that I took with me that I had to break. And that was the hardest part about writing this book, was talking to people about, real life lessons that I learned that were rooted in, their hearts were in the right place, but they were rooted in fear.
Right.
And I had to break those chains without making it seem like I was throwing them under the bus, because every choice I make is mine, and every mistake I make is my fault.
And tell us the title of your book one more time and how people can find it.
Absolutely. It's Reclaiming My Authentic Self, A Journey from Fear to Freedom. You can find it on Amazon. I was fortunate enough to have it become a bestseller on Amazon on
Excellent.
the day it launched back in February of this year. Definitely enjoyed writing this book. And if you can understand, what it feels like to be shackled by the life lessons you learned, and you're trying to break free to be able to live your life, you want to read this book, because I talk all about that in great detail. My life's an open book, no pun intended. And if it helps even one person, I'm going to share it. And I did in this book.
And I will include a link to it when we post the podcast afterward as well. And speaking of podcast, I believe you also have a podcast.
I do. Hopefully we can get you on it here very soon. It's had, again, much like my business, it's had several different iterations over the past 3-4 years since I launched it. It's called the Fitness is Our Business Community. That's the mantra I live by, is that our fitness is our business, because if we want to build that business, we've got to be mentally, emotionally, and physically fit. So I have people on, talking about their connection between their health and well-being and the success they're enjoying in their own industries. And it's a lot of fun. I enjoy doing it. Running my mouth is something I certainly enjoy doing. If you haven't figured it out by now, that's a good problem to have. And I certainly enjoy it, and I always tell people, it's real. It's not scripted or anything like that. I just enjoy talking to people and having a conversation to the point that sometimes we forget we're actually being recorded.
I I had to cut one off the other day because I realized we were going so long we had talked too long,
Yeah,
because we got off on a tangent about books we read.
yeah, I've been down that road a few times myself.
And well, one thing I love to do is have people share advice for our listeners, things that you've learned. So I like to ask, what have you learned during your career that you wish you'd known when you first started out?
Oh man, I wish I had started taking care of myself sooner. You know, I always talk about not having regrets, but I always will have one. I'll take it to my grave. It's that I sometimes stop and think, man, how much further along would I be, both personally and professionally, if I'd started taking better care of myself even 5 years earlier than I did, 10 years earlier, 15 years earlier? How much further along would I be right now at 53 years old? So to me, I one thing I share with people all the time, the best time to start getting physically fit is about 20 years ago. That's what it was for me. The next best time, right now.
Today. Well, and similar question, but worded a little differently. What advice would you give somebody starting out that wanted to be in the fitness profession?
Oh, be prepared to work hard and understand that you can't help everyone as much as we want to. Now, in the beginning, you're like I said earlier, I've worked with people ages 14 to 83 while I was figuring out, what niche group I wanted to work with specifically, and I went through again different iterations of that until I figured it out. But you can't help everyone, nor should you want to, because you're not going to be a good fit for everyone.
Right.
Everyone's not going to be a good fit for you. I'm a big believer in collaboration over competition. And for me, if there's someone who isn't a good fit, I'm going to pass them along to someone else who is. So understand that you can't help everyone, but those people that you really connect with, you can do some serious good for.
And I think that's important advice, especially in any kind of a business where you're working person to person like you do in your business.
Mm-hmm.
We parted ways with a client recently that it was nothing bad about them or us. They just weren't the right fit. And what they needed and what we do weren't the same thing. And they kept asking us to do things that are simply not our skill set and not what we do. And we kept telling them, we don't do that. That we would be
Mm-hmm.
doing you a disservice to let you hire us to do that because it's not what we do. And I think recognizing that and owning it rather than trying to be all things to all people is an important step for any business person. Anything else you want to share before I get to some closeout questions here?
I know you mentioned obviously, any advice for people in the health and fitness and wanting to get into the health and fitness industry. Some advice for people who just want to get healthy and fit. Just start. The biggest mistakes I used to make was trying to take on too much too quickly. And yeah, it'd be great for a few weeks, maybe a month or two, but I simply could not maintain that level because I simply wasn't ready for it. And I know when people ask me how I got started, I share with them simply, I hired a coach. I had a coach 15 years ago when I first started. And the very first workout I did was 10 minutes at 1.0 on the treadmill. That was it. That's all she expected me to do because at the time, that's all I really could do. And that's okay because everybody has to start somewhere and understand that you're going to be here to start. But if you do the work, you're not going to stay there.
Well, I think that story you just told is an important one to help you connect with a lot of people because a lot of people, when they see a person that's a personal trainer, they assume that person has been in shape every day of their life. And they say, oh, they can't relate to me. I've been on the couch every day and they've been in the gym every day and
Yeah.
they don't feel like there's a connection. So that's what you just shared is an important connection with the average person that struggles to find time or motivation to do this. And I'm one of those people that will set 600 goals rather than two or three. And I set so many goals, I don't get around to any of them because they're too many. And I need to find a way to focus on those two or three things and just start, like you said. And one thing that's probably a little out of your bailiwick, but I do want to mention it, is how important mental health is to health as
Mm-hmm.
well. A lot of people focus just on the physical aspect, but I know it's so important for people to realize that mental health is also health, and they need to make it a point to take care of that as well.
Why I do that is all for the mental and emotional side of me. When I strength train, when I do anything, because it makes me feel good. I shared my video just earlier today before we recorded this, that, people don't understand that you have to start somewhere. You have to take the opportunity to do things the right way from the beginning, but you also have to understand that you're not going to want to do it every day. I don't want to do it every day. What sets me or other people apart, because I don't consider myself any better or more important than anyone else, is that on those days when you don't want to do it, you do the work anyway because the benefits from it far outweigh you wanting to or not. As a good friend of mine always says, is don't gotta wanna. You don't gotta want to do the work to actually do the work. And when you do that, when you realize discipline beats motivation every time, that's when true success and true gains are made.
And that is 100% true, whether it's in fitness or anything else.
That's it.
Well, to close it out, tell us either what you're currently reading or what podcast you like to listen to, either for entertainment or for self improvement. Some people go one direction with that, and some go the other direction.
Well, it's actually a book I'm about to start rereading that I read probably about 2-3 years ago, and I joke with my wife to this day because she's the one that got me the book. I think for Father's Day, Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey. And when I first unwrapped it and I looked at it, I didn't tell her this, but I thought it out loud. And I was like, why in the world did she get me this book? I mean, Matthew McConaughey is an author? Who knew? And then I read the book, and it's talking about all those little signals, all those little signs, the green lights, if you will, that are staring us right in the face. We just have to see them, accept them, and follow through on them. So it's a book that I like to periodically reread, because there's always a little something that you find that maybe you missed, the last time out. So it's a great, great book. And it's one kind of, like you said, kind of off the beaten path a little bit for what I do, but I would recommend it to anyone. Podcast
I wasn't
wise,
familiar with that. I may have to check it out.
great book. I loved it. Real easy read. When you read it, it sounds like Matthew McConaughey. If you obviously seen his movies, it really sounds like him, which is great, because I do love watching him as an actor. Podcast wise, at the Ed Milet Show is one. If you ever read his book, The Power of One More, he's written a bunch of different books. He's as motivational as it gets without being motivational, if you will, preachy or over the top. I mean, he's done so many things in his life, but he shares his own personal story of his struggles growing up as well. So it's those types of things that I can relate to. And I'll be honest with you, I listen to him while I'm lifting. And if I don't feel it that day, by the time we're a few minutes into his podcast, I'm feeling pretty good, and I'm excited to get moving on that workout.
Well, anything else you want to share before we close it out?
Well, obviously, anybody can find me pretty much anywhere on social media. If you search my name or Fernandes Fit on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, I have a YouTube channel as well called The Fitness is Our Business Community. Certainly I'm on LinkedIn as well. So pretty much anywhere. And obviously, if you know me here locally, I network quite a bit as well. So feel free to come talk to me. I'm one who says I don't try to sell anything. I just want to have a conversation with people and see if I can help them. And if I can help them, great. And if I can't, I'm going to find a way to find somebody who can. That's all there is to it. I don't worry about trying to sell to people, because if I have to sell health and well-being, I'm doing something wrong here. And we're all doing something wrong.
You're either doing something wrong, or you're talking to someone who's not your potential client.
100%. 100%.
We say the same thing in our business. We just want to have a conversation and find out if we can help somebody. And if they don't see the value in what we do, or they're not ready, we'll move on to someone who is. And and a lot of times those people who aren't a good fit will refer us someone who is, because we didn't try to force something on them they didn't need.
I 100% agree. And there's nothing worse than being in a situation where you're vulnerable and having somebody push something on you that you're simply not ready for. And that's okay if they're not ready. We're all ready in our own time.
We're all at different points along that continuum. Well, Victor, thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to putting this on the air probably later this week. So it'll be up. I'll let you know what day we get it up, and it'll be available for all the world to see.
I appreciate you having me on. This was fun.
Thank you, and have a good rest of your afternoon.
You do the same.